Hey guys, it's Phil coming back at you with another video. Today, I'm back. I'm excited. I'm pumped up. Hopefully everyone's doing well, practicing self-care, not letting one thought, one situation, one person take them outside of what they know to be true. You're not being hard on yourself. You're not beating yourself down. You're not letting anything take you outside of what you know, because a lot of times stress is going to destroy you. Stress is going to destroy you and not allow for yourself to become the best possible version of yourself. I know 54 people did just that. They went into the exam, kicked it directly in the chest to get the job done. Since my last video, a lot of people on this list were doubting themselves. They weren't even sure if what they could do is actually possible. They're wondering if they should leave the social work field. They're like, man, I'm not getting as many questions correct. I'm not understanding all of these different concepts. I'm beating up on myself. I'm not even sure of what I should be able to do. But what they did is double down, invested in themselves, did the next right thing, and didn't let one thought, one situation, one person take them outside of what they know to be true. They didn't second guess. They didn't add to the questions. They didn't take away from them. They went into the exam not 100% confident, but confident enough to believe that they can actually achieve what they want to see, and then win the exam, kicked it directly in the chest to get the job done. And they are as follows: Jennifer P, Ty S, Amberly S, Lewis S, Heidi M, Joe F, Josie S, Ashley S, Brenda B, Jamelia L, Jason R, Cassandra C, Latasha O, Amy L, Cynthia F, Amy B, Danielle M, Sarah R, Stephanie T, Chelsea H, Janina R, India K, Alice S, Linda J, Hector M, Rafi C, Aparcita G, Anna A, Samantha P, Jasmine B, Kira G, Marie R, Ella M, Gavin R, Heather W, Michelle R, Natoya N, Angela M, Eddie P, Lakel W, Rachel C, Margaret M, Terry F, Kenji H, Cassie W, Crystal C, Under T, Stephanie M, Stevie M, Jacqueline P, Stephanie W, Nick M, Stacy H, Esmeralda A, Sativa W, Brooke S, and Bethany W. So excited, man, because a lot of people on that list, like I said, they were doubting themselves, they were beating themselves up, they're not even really sure what they were supposed to be doing. But a lot of times what happens is the gauge that people are judging themselves at are not actually the gauge of the actual exam. They're not getting as many questions that they want to get correct, but at the end of the day, the only thing that dictates whether you pass or fail the exam is the actual exam. So if you're like, man, I'm not getting enough practice questions right, or man, I'm not doing the right thing, well, how do you know if you're doing the right thing unless you try it? Because the only time that you actually fail is when you stop, or if you don't actually give yourself the benefit of the doubt to actually give yourself the experience. Because the only time that you have experience is if you give yourself the ability to do something new. But if you're always hiding away from something new or running away from the possibility of being successful, because again, there's an equal possibility of success versus not succeeding in the thing that you actually want to do. But there's a third option of making it 100% of not doing anything, is just avoiding doing the thing that you actually want to do. And if you're like, man, Phil, I want to be on that list, man, I want to pass, I want to rep and rock with you as well. And the easiest way to do that is to attend the Sunday study groups. They're 7 p.m. Eastern time every single Sunday. If you're not able to attend live, you can receive the recording. They're from 7 p.m. until they kick us out. And I don't really provide an end time because the end time is variable. A lot of times it's longer than I actually say. So on typical, the Sunday study groups are 3.5 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, depending on how long it actually takes. And at the end of the sessions, there's a question and answer segment. So if you want to directly interact with me, it's 100% possible. The next Sunday study groups are as follows: 7:31, practice questions, so going over the 6-step process that I recommend every single person utilize to break down every single question, going over the different types of questions, going over tips and myths that people have as it relates to the exam, providing motivation for people that are feeling unmotivated, giving you tips how to prepare and actually go in the exam, kick it directly in the chest to get the job done. We'll be reviewing 15 practice questions after all of that. The next one after that is 8-7, Freudian theory. So going over the stages of psychosexual development, then going over psychoanalytic, going over the defense mechanisms, not ways for you to memorize anything, but ways for you to actually be able to recognize and apply it. Because a lot of times people know the information, but when they're inside of the exam, they're not actually able to get the result that they actually want to. So again, it's going to be going over the content, but it's going to be going over practice questions related to those. The next one after that is 8-14, DSM-5 adult. So it's going to be going over the personality disorders, the schizophrenia spectrum, the differences between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 disorder. It's going to be going over the medications, and then it's going to be going over practice questions related to those. Again, it's not to help you memorize anything, but it's being able to help you recognize and apply the information as it relates to actual questions inside of the exam. The next one after that is 8-21. stages of treatment and diversity, so going over the different stages of treatment that you particularly could see. How do they differ from one another? Going over different considerations of diversity. Is diversity relevant to the question? Is it irrelevant to the question? What are things that you should be mindful of as you're going through the questions? We'll be going over practice questions related to that. 828 is the next one after that, going over substance use as well as the stages of change. So going over different intoxication and withdrawal symptoms. What do they look like? How do they differ from substance to substance, as well as what is a substance use disorder? And then going over the stages of change related to that. And then practice questions related to all of those. And the next one after that is 9.4, going over the acronym and practice questions. So going over the acronym that I recommend: safety, feelings, assess, refer, educate, advocate, facilitate, and intervene. Not giving you buzzwords, not telling you things that you should be looking for, but understanding how do you actually apply the acronym and understand the meaning of each answer choice relative to the question, as well as going through practice questions and tips that I find most helpful for people to go on the exam to kick it directly in the chest to get the job done. And the practice questions that we'll be going over in the 9.4 session are going to be different than the ones that we are going in the 7.31 session. So if you want to attend both sessions, it's 100% possible. You're not going to get any repeat questions in any way, shape, or form. And as I stated, you don't have to attend the sessions live. As long as you register, it'll send you a recording and the materials that you can review at your own leisure. If you want any information related to those, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com or click the link down below in the description. It's to view more under the title. It'll send you the calendar. You'll be able to register and rep and rock with me as well as I do still offer individual tutoring. So if you want to work with me directly, understand different content areas, better understand how to break down questions. Maybe you feel like you have a decent understanding of how to break down questions, but you're nervous about your exam coming up. Individual tutoring is possible. Send me an email at berda24@gmail.com or click the link down below in the description. You can go to my calendar, register for the sessions, and I appreciate every single person that reps and rocks with me, either in the Sunday study groups or individual tutoring, as well as the next one-day course is going to be this Saturday, 7:30. It's going to be going over a multitude of different topics, as well as how do you break down the questions if you're feeling unmotivated. How do you get yourself motivated? How do you prepare for the exam? What are things that you should be looking out for? Because the one-day course has been the most successful thing that I've done, because it, one, allows for you to have the most information and contact with me, but two, it allows for you to actually get in front of difficult questions, to not just memorize, not just go with buzzwords, but actually be able to look at the questions, break them down, not have a breakdown during the exam, and actually go in the exam to kick it directly in the chest to get the job done. So the next one-day course is this Saturday from 11 a.m. Eastern time until they kick us out. I don't really provide an end time for the session, because that session tends to be the longest session that I offer, because the last couple of one-day courses have been 12 hours, 13 hours, 14 hours. So the end time all depends on what we're looking at and how much information that we pack into that. So if you're like me and I want to go to the one-day course, what the heck is the one-day course? It reviews the tips that I found most helpful for people to keep in mind as they're preparing for and while they're in the exam. Most common reasons why people have failed the exam, because the best way to learn what not to do is by reversing the things that people have done in the past that have caused them to fail the exam. It will go over a mixture of different topics: subpoena versus court order, when to refer versus when to seek supervision, operant conditioning, the personality disorders, DSM-5 diagnoses, bipolar disorder, bipolar 1 versus bipolar 2 disorder, the schizophrenia spectrum. We'll go over all these different considerations of not how to memorize any of these things, but be able to recognize and apply it. We'll go over the medications. We'll go over the acronym. We'll go over the 6-step process that I recommend people to utilize while breaking down every single question, as well as going through 25 difficult practice questions, not to have you feel good, because a lot of times people will come into my questions group and say, man, I thought I was going to get them all right, or man, I'm not getting as many right as I wanted to. Is something wrong with me? No, the questions that I write tend to be more difficult than the ones on the actual exam. So if you're repping and rocking with me, it's not going to be a shock when you get into the exam, because a lot of times people utilize other people's materials or they're practicing with other questions, and then they go in the exam and they're completely surprised that the questions are more difficult. They're not able to break them down. So again, if you want to rep and rock with me in the one-day course, Sunday study groups, individual tutoring, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. But if your exam is prior to 7:30, it is 100% possible to get a previously recorded version of the one-day course. Send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. I hope to see everybody in the Sunday study groups, individual tutoring, as well as one-day course. But for those that do not know, Audible has continued to partner with me on my YouTube videos and my podcast. So if you want to support me as well as support them, go to my Audible affiliate link at www.audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. It allows for you to get a free book. That's the easiest way to be able to rock and rock with me, and it costs you absolutely nothing. So again, if you want to support me as well as support them, go to my Audible affiliate link at www.audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial or click the link down below in the description. It allows for you to get a free book. And if you're like, Phil, what is Audible? Audible is an easy way to get information on the go. So if you're busy just like me, or if you're an auditory learner just like me, Audible is an easy way to get information on the go, so that way you can still become the best possible version of yourself. And if you're like, Phil, I want to go to the Audible affiliate link, I'm going to sign up for the 30-day free trial. What are a couple of books that you would recommend? And the books that I would recommend are as follows: The Alchemist, The Archer, Traumatized, and Outliers. Each of them have different pieces of information that can help you both, one, progress professionally, but two, progress personally. So that way it's not just you focusing on your career, but you're actually building down and building yourself up and becoming the best possible version of themselves. So if you want to rep and rock with me, go to my Audible affiliate link at www.audibletrial.com/fill-in-the-gaps. Sign up for the 30-day free trial. It allows for you to get a free book. And if you haven't already, do me a favor, hit the like button down below. Hit the thumbs up button, because it allows for amazing social workers just like you to find my videos as well. And if you want to do me a favor, please drop a comment down below, something positive, something that you're working on, something that is on your mind, because I don't know about anybody else, but the people that are commenting down below definitely helps me get through tough times. More positivity around this world is a lot better than all the negativity, all the doubt, all the shame, all the blame that we're putting on ourselves as it relates to us preparing for their exam or even in our careers. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button down below, hit the bell notification next to it, because it sends you an email every time that I upload a video. I appreciate every single one of you guys that are repping and rocking with me, those that like the videos, those that comment, those that are subscribing, those that are coming to my sessions. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you guys. It means the world to me to be able to have a community so large, a community so positive, and a community that when I'm going through rough times, it makes me feel better, and I know that other people feel better as well. And before I let you go, there are a couple of things that have been on my mind, and the rest of the video is going to be me interacting with people who are feeling anxious about their exams, comparing themselves to other people, as well as somebody that went in the exam, kicked it directly in the chest to get the job done. But a couple of thoughts that have been on my mind are, one, how in the heck is everyone doing right now? And two, what are ways that people are actually experiencing what they're actually experiencing? What do I mean by that? Well, like, what are people actually going through right now? There's a lot of things. A lot of times people are trying to prepare for the exams. They're having to balance their exam with their family, with their job, with all these different opportunities, all these different stressors. And two, how are they responding to it? Because I don't know about you all, but a lot of what we're going through is a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety and a lot of pressure all of the time. And when we go through all those different moments, we're starting to feel burnt out. We're starting to feel stressed. We're starting to feel like what we're doing is not actually paying off. Or maybe you went into the exam, you put everything on the line, you didn't get the result that you wanted. How are you bouncing back from that? Because again, I am a 100% believer that if somebody wants to achieve something, that as long as they don't give up, that they're actually going to get there. But it's way more difficult to do than to say it. And what I mean by that is, if you're doing something and you're not getting the result that you want, you have to ask yourself, am I doing everything that I possibly can? And if you're doing everything that you possibly can, you have to give, one, yourself credit for it, but two, you have to give yourself grace to find different materials or different resources or different things that you need to be working on with and for your situation. And I always say it's easy for people to build themselves up, but it's difficult for people to build down, because a lot of times when people are feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling stressed, they're not getting the results that they particularly want. So my push is, again, and I'm not doing the cliche way of like, man, you just need to practice self-care, because self-care looks different for everybody. But our idea of self-care is to do more, or to do all these different things. Self-care sometimes is not doing anything at all. So if you're not studying and you're beating up on yourself, you have to ask yourself, do I need the time off? Do I need a little bit of grace? Do I need this time to actually charge myself up to be the best possible version of yourself? Because a lot of times, as we're going through things, what is the difference between self-care and being overwhelmed is a huge fine line. And a lot of times people are like, man, just do self-care, just do self-care, just do self-care. It's easily said, but a lot of times we have a ton of things going on in life. So my push for you is to identify what is important to you right now. Like, what are things that you want to do, but what are some things that you've been putting off? Because the things that you're putting off are actually creating more stress than the things that you're doing and not doing things the way that you want them to. And what I mean by that is, if you want to pass your exam, but you keep rescheduling it, or man, you want to spend more time with your family, you want to spend more time with your friends, but you're putting those things off, you're not actually filling your cup up. You're just multiplying the different cups that are empty. So if you're not doing things that you want to do, and you're not adhering to those things, of course you're going to feel overwhelmed. Of course you're going to be feeling burnt out. So my push is to not just view where you want to go, but how are you actually getting there? Because it's the journey that's going to determine the result of when you actually succeed in the area that you want to. And what I mean by that is a lot of times people just want to pass their test and they feel like they can just shove a ton of materials down their throat. They feel like they can beat up on themselves. They feel like they don't have to take any time off in any way, shape, or form. But it's like you're still a human. You have a heartbeat. You have stress measures. You have all of these different things. And if you're finding yourself wanting to overwhelm yourself and wanting to take care of other people versus taking care of your own situation, you have to ask yourself, is that a protective factor of if I were to focus on other people, regardless of how my situation is going, I now have still control of my situation and I still have worth based on the fact that other people think that I'm worthy. But if you're not doing things that make you feel happy, or if you're not doing things that make you feel whole or fulfilled, you're not ever going to be on that upside of feeling good about yourself. You're always going to be looking for the next thing that you're not actually doing. So that's why I always ask people is, man, what are you doing for yourself? Or why do you want to pass this test? And a lot of times people are not able to identify whether they want to pass this test. A lot of times people aren't able to identify what they're doing in their situation. They're just kind of mindlessly going through and trying to mix materials or mixing strategies back and forth, but you don't even know if it's going to be working with you. And I met with somebody just the other day that was like, man, Phil, I watched your videos. I was repping and rocking with you. I was in your groups. Man, I did tutoring in the past. I passed my first exam. And then for the second exam, I didn't reach out. I didn't use your materials. I was watching your videos, but then I watched 4 or 5 different other materials. I was trying to do all these different strategies and techniques. And then I took the practice exam doing what I did in the past because I was comfortable. But now, as I'm doing all these other questions, I'm bouncing around like a bouncing ball, and I'm not even really sure what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's my push is if you find yourself overwhelmed, ask yourself, 1, am I doing too much? 2, if I'm doing too much, why am I putting more on myself than I can actually handle? And 3, if I'm not putting too much on myself, where is this stress coming from? Is it self-imposed? Is it something I went through in the past? Is it something that I anticipate going through in the future? Or is it something I'm going through right now? Because you're not a robot. You're not like a super person, not to say you're not capable and gifted and talented, but at the end of the day, you can't take care of all the world's problems. You're not everybody's social worker. You're not everybody's caretaker. You're not everybody's X, Y, and Z. You're not everybody's supply. Because you have to balance the equation and say, if I'm giving out X amount of energy, what am I getting back? It's not transactional, but you have to at least find the scales are balancing, because if it's all the way that you're giving everything away and receiving nothing back, we got to balance the equation just a little bit and say, what do I need to find some serenity within my life? And what self-care can look like is different for everybody. And that's the crazy part is people are like, man, just take time off. Man, just go and do this. Go and exercise. Do that. Do this. Do that. Do that. But you got to ask yourself, what are things that I actually find fulfillment in? Is it me just chilling? Is it me not doing anything? Is it me not looking at that book? Is it me not studying? Is it me not doing all these things at the same time and feeling like I have to impress everybody, but I have to put an impression on myself? Like I have to impress myself, not other people. Because if you're looking at somebody else and trying to determine how you're doing with your exam, or, man, that person passed doing this, or this person did this, or that person did that, you're not that person. And it doesn't mean that things aren't helpful or you can't supplement what you're doing, but if you know at the end of the day something's not positive for you, don't put it in your process. Don't put extra things on yourself, because life's going to do that anyway. Because at any given moment, as long as you have a heartbeat in your chest, you're going to have something to worry about. You're going to have stress on your plate. You're going to have pressure on yourself. But at the end of the day, you have to determine what pressure is worth me going through everything that I'm going through. Maybe sometimes less is more. Because if you're putting less on yourself and you're utilizing the stuff that you know is going to work for you, you don't need another program. You don't need another situation. You don't need another person to tell you what to do. You don't need any of these things. You need to do what you think is right with and for your situation. And that's not a cop-out. That's not like, man, I know what's best all the time. It's, I need to determine what I know, what I don't know, and go from there. Because then the only way to know if something works is to try it out. And I'm not telling you just blindly go into the exam and be like, boom, I'm going to do whatever I think. It's, I need to take calculated risks, because the only way that you gain something in this life is by doing what you think is right with and for your situation. It's way easier for you to go in the exam, do what you think is right, and then walk out and get the result that is going to be on that paper. Because if you pass, you're never going to doubt yourself a day in your life. Not to say that you're going to be pseudo-confident all the time, but what I'm telling you is, if you give yourself the credit and the grace to do something new, and it is a quote-unquote successful attempt, you now have the experience that you know works. So that way, when you get into a new opportunity, you already know what you need, you already know how to cope, you already know how to balance your stressors, and you know how to become the best possible version of yourself. But if you don't have that belief in yourself, or if you doubt yourself all the time, or if you're always clinging on the opinion of somebody else, if that person is not in your situation any longer, how are you going to make the decision? So that's what I'm telling you. You have to ask yourself, am I practicing self-care in the way that I want to practice it? Or 2, am I overwhelmed? And if you're overwhelmed, it's a sense of you trying to protect yourself from something to come based on doing the most. And if you're in that productive mindset of like, man, I need to be productive all the time, or man, I'm not getting the results that I want, or I'm not succeeding the way that I want to, you have to ask yourself, what gauge are you putting yourself up to? Are you expecting more out of yourself at this given moment than you would expect out of somebody else in the same situation as you? And if the answer is yes, I am demanding more out of myself because I have more growth that I can make, at what timeline are you giving yourself to make that growth? Because a lot of times people are expecting things out of themselves that they need X amount of time to get it done, but they're beating down on themselves for being quote unquote slow at getting that result. So that's my push. If you're feeling overwhelmed, ask yourself why. Why am I doing this? Like, why am I treating myself as somebody else other than I would want to be around? Because if you're beating down on yourself, you have to ask yourself, how sustainable is that process? You can get results by beating up on yourself, but are they the results that you actually want? Are you building up to be the person that you want to be? Are you the person that you would want to have as a friend? And if not, you have to make that decision and say, what are the changes that I need to make? And I get emails all the time, man, Phil, I'm not feeling as confident as I want to be. Or man, I'm not feeling as motivated as I want to be. And I always ask them, why are you doing this? Like, what makes this so important for you to do at this given moment? Because you could be doing anything right now. You could be doing anything in your life right now. What makes this exam so important? And if you're saying you want a job, you want an opportunity, you want more money, I'm on that side of like, man, I want you to get more money. I want you to get more opportunities. But is the money and the opportunities going to give you as fired up as something that is more personal to who you are with them for this situation? Because it's the people that say, man, Phil, I'm trying to pass this exam so I can make the next version in my family better off. The next generation is going to be better off. Or man, I'm trying to empower myself to give myself the capabilities of trying something new without criticizing myself. Or man, I want to do this for my child. Man, I want to do this for my parents. I want to do all these different things. That's going to get you more fired up than, man, I want that job or I want that opportunity. Because that agency could let you go from that job or opportunity. But you can't let go of the things that are important to you because you have them solidified within your life. So that's my push. Identify. If you're feeling overwhelmed, why are you feeling overwhelmed? What are you doing? How are you reacting? What are things that you're doing with and for your situation? And beyond that, do what you can in your control. Just because you're putting forth effort doesn't mean results are going to come. But if you're putting forth effort and the results aren't coming, are you giving it enough time to give you the results that you're seeking? And if the answer is no, you got to take a step back and say, man, why am I so tough on myself? Man, why am I speeding up the timeline? Because once you start controlling what you think and how you behave and do all of these different things in your control, even though you may not be getting the results, even though you may be feeling the stress, it doesn't take away from the fact that you can give yourself credit for everything that you've been doing with and for the situation. Because as social workers, we tend not to give ourselves credit. We tend to give credit to other people. We tend to push the credit away. We tend to diminish ourselves, but we don't realize that when we discredit or invalidate ourselves at any given moment, it's going to become a pattern. So regardless of how successful or regardless of what we do within our lives, we're never going to take the credit because we don't feel like we deserve it within the situation. So if you're in that boat of like, man, I don't deserve the credit, or man, I'm not successful, I don't deserve to give myself grace, or I don't deserve to give myself positivity, you got to put yourself in check and say, whether you're successful or unsuccessful is irrelevant. It's who you are while doing the things that you're doing that are going to form you into the person that you're going to be for the totality of your life. So if you're being positive and you're giving yourself grace, you're putting it in perspective and saying, man, I don't have to be in control. I don't have to control everything. I can trust other people and get the results I want. It's going to be a heck of a lot easier to maintain that than I got to control everything. I got to be the person that's always successful. I got to never fail. I got to always be positive. I got to always be doing everything for everybody else. Well, at that given moment, you got to really say, is that maintainable? Or are you going to continue fishing for positivity from other people or acceptance from other people that you may never get? It's an inverse transaction. I'm expecting something and hoping somebody's going to give me something that isn't guaranteed. So that's where you got to ask yourself, how am I talking to myself? What am I doing? Am I doing everything in my control? And if you are, got to give yourself credit. And again, take it from somebody that is rarely ever giving himself credit Take it from somebody that always has negative thoughts. Take it from somebody that's not always the most positive person. But again, it's easier for me to suppress those words and to let positivity seep out, because more positive thoughts, positive vibes equal positive results. And I'm trying to cultivate an environment where positivity is being bred every single day. But if I let the negative thoughts, negative vibes, and negative environment take over, it's not going to be sustainable. I'm never going to think the things that I'm doing are impacting anybody in any way, shape, or form. Or if somebody had a negative criticism about me or what I'm doing and about what I'm saying, I'm gonna take it to heart and say they're going to define my worth. But it's not the sum of one person that defines everything. It's the sum of everybody, or the sum of all, that are going to determine all the moments that you experience in the future. So have that filter on you. Have that vision on you. Have that determination of like, man, if somebody's in front of me, are they trying to build me up or trying to tear me down? And if they're trying to tear me down, I just got to say thanks for the feedback. Thanks for trying to put something in my situation, but I know me better than anybody else. So again, practice that self-care, but it may look different than what people are telling you. People may be telling you to take time off, but taking time off isn't possible for you. But what are some moments that you can create in your life that are going to give you some space and refill you up? Maybe that's listening to a favorite song on the way home. Maybe that's as you're using the restroom, you're thinking about positive things. Maybe during the shower, if you're taking a shower, you're thinking about your dreams and your goals and filling yourself up. Maybe it's having a meal that you've always wanted to have. Maybe it's having a conversation with a friend. Maybe it's taking a step outside. Maybe it's watching a show. Maybe it's not studying and beating yourself down for not studying. It looks different for everybody. Maybe it's applying for jobs and not getting the jobs you want, but you know that you gave everything you got. So the self-care you give yourself is that positivity or that comfort that you've been seeking from other people, but you have to start being willing to give it to yourself, so that way if somebody is going to give it to you, you know how to receive it. So hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully that was going to help somebody in some way, shape, or form, because those are some thoughts that I've been having. I never want anybody to feel negative. I never want somebody to feel beat down. I never want somebody to be in a position where they're like, man, I can't do this anymore. Because as long as you have a heartbeat in your chest, and as long as you have a vision out of your eyes, and as long as you have a dream coming to your mind, you can get it done. It may be in a different timeline. It may be in a different situation. It may be in a different environment. But guess what? You can get there. Don't stop. Never stop. Never stop. Never stop. Never stop. Because once it's stopping, that is once you're going to fail. As long as you're striving and driving towards the future, you'll get there. But if you're pushing yourself down, beating yourself down, and getting overwhelmed and degrading yourself in a way that you know is not conducive to yourself, you got to put yourself on punishment and say, man, that was a defense mechanism from the past. I'm not going to let my past dictate my future. I got to stay in the current moment. I got to present myself as the way that I want to be presented. I got to communicate with the way that I want to be communicated with. I got to tell myself the things that I want to hear. I got to tell myself and give myself the situations and environments and opportunities that I know that I need to be within for the situation to become the best possible version of myself. So again, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you guys. If you've got this part in the video, you know there's a special place in my heart, because again, those that rep and rock with me thick, those that are building me up, those that are telling me that, man, you're impacting my life, you're changing my life, you're doing all these things. It means more than I can ever express, because I'm just one guy on this planet. And I'm just walking in the gift that I've been given. And if it's no longer a gift to people, then I got to make a decision. But I always got to tell myself, don't let one thought, one situation, one person take you outside of what you know to be true. Because as long as we're helping one person, that's enough. Because I'm only one person trying to help one person. And one person over time, it creates a bunch of people. And that's where I was looking at it before. I was like, man, Phil, you ain't helping as many people pass the exam as you want to. And it's like, man, I've helped over 3,000 people go in the exam, kick it directly in the chest to get the job done. You're one person from Michigan. You're one person that never thought you would impact anybody. So you're way far ahead. So don't let the timeline of where you thought that you'd be at this given moment destroy the moments that you're actually in. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you guys. Hope to see you in the one-day course. Hope to see you in the Sunday study groups. Hope to see you in individual tutoring. Hope to see you at the next free study group in any capacity. If you need anything, send me an email at berda24@gmail.com. And if you're feeling low, always remind yourself you're not alone. You're not alone on this journey. You're not alone on this planet. You can do anything that you set your mind to. From the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you guys. Take care. Be safe. Like I said, the rest of this video is me interacting with people that are feeling anxious to go into the exams to get directly in the chest to get the job done. Somebody who's comparing themselves to another person because their friend passed the exam, and then having somebody that is coming back to share their experience about how they went in the exam to kick it directly in the chest to get the job done. Take care. Be safe. I love every single one of you guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. And peace out, guys. Hello? I test for my clinical exam on Monday. I feel like I'm overstudying. I plan to study and review all my information all day tomorrow, just as I have today and yesterday. I'm looking forward to some motivation tonight and building my confidence to walk into the test door and get it done.
Hi. I don't really know if I need to share my experience. It's just I think I have this over anxiety about testing on Monday, and I just don't want to do anything wrong. So I think listening to the people prior has really helped and has given me some things that I want to do and try. I've heard some kind of back and forth things that should I study the day before? Should I not study? What's your recommendation on that?
So this is going to be an odd question, but bear with me as I go through it. Are you a fill or not fill? So a fill is somebody that needs to be doing something 100% of the time. They don't typically plan things ahead of time, and they just shoot from the hip. Not fills are people that need structure. They schedule things way far in advance, and they need to make sure every little thing is planned out.
So can I be in the middle? Is there a middle of that or not
of
really?
course there's hybrids. Of course, with any extreme, there's that middle. So if you're in the middle, you have to sit yourself down and say, if I'm walking into the exam, what would I feel most comfortable doing? And what would I feel most uncomfortable doing? And what I mean by that is fills tend to want to do as much as they possibly can the day before the exam. In that case, you want to restrict it to a smaller scale of what you're feeling. And what that could look like is, rather than wanting to do an entire practice exam, simply picking out maybe 10 to 15 questions to practice the process that you plan to do inside of the exam. So one, you have that exposure of, I'm okay and comfortable with the process I plan on doing. And two, that you're still able to do the process and get some result from it. Not fills, on the other hand, what I would recommend is do a little bit of exposure to your process, but you may need to take the day off in order to organize yourself and be recharged and fired up to walk into the exam. So if you're in the middle, I guess you might have to dabble and dip with both of those. But what do you think you'd feel most comfortable doing if we skip to Monday after the exam? And let's say you have a reflection, whether you passed or failed, what would you had hoped you had done leading up to the exam?
Yeah, I think I'm definitely going to have to do some reviewing tomorrow. And then so I'm going to definitely have to do some review tomorrow. And then I see myself getting to the parking lot, probably like an hour, maybe 2 hours early, and reviewing in the parking lot as well as giving myself some motivational pep talks and telling myself I can pass it 3 times and then just walking in the door and doing my best. So I think that's probably what I'll have to do just for my own sanity.
Okay. So I would say you're more on the fill side.
Okay, then.
And I say that because fills really, 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 and this is me speaking from my experience, want to be not fills, but they have to push themselves to be that when major things come up. So like showing up to the exam early is really, really important. So you're like, I need to make sure I'm there, because as long as I'm there, the likelihood of me passing dramatically goes up, as well as still making sure that you expose yourself to the materials that you feel most vulnerable in. So that box is checked walking into the exam. Does that make sense?
Yep, it does.
So that is what I would recommend doing, but I would not overdo it. I wouldn't have a huge stack of things that you want to review. I'd pick a handful of things to make sure that morning of is not exhausting you while walking into the exam.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to be able to help. Walk in, kick it in the chest, and get the job done. Hi, Phil. I test in 16 days, and this is my second time this year. Anxiety is at an all-time high and want this to be the last time.
Yes.
How's it going? How's it going?
Good.
So yeah, how are you feeling being 16 days out?
I Anxiety is at an all-time high. I don't know what to focus on just because I still have in the back of my mind that I did fail the first time by 10 points. And this time I just want to see pass. I don't care if it's the minimum this time.
So thinking about your previous exam being 10 points away, what have you done for this preparation to make yourself feel less anxious walking in?
I did, I guess I took the first time I took the test in September, I did take like a month off of studying and just do a lot of self-care. I went back into it probably November and just was like, after watching some of your videos and just kind of getting motivated again, I started studying, just studying everywhere pretty much. And I guess my focus, or what I feel maybe I could have did a little bit better on, is just kind of rereading the questions and just breaking them down and seeing what the question was asking. I don't want to fail. I guess that's what makes me anxious, just being a person that, graduated with honors in high school, college, and then now, faced with this test, failing the first time, and then now I'm be at it again in 16 days. Passing this time, though.
So you failing the exam is the first failure that you've ever experienced in life?
As I'll say, as far as in school-wise, yes. I've dealt with other failures, but not as far as schooling. No.
And what did that feel like? Walk me through that. What did it feel like to actually fail academically?
It made me feel like maybe I didn't study enough. Maybe I didn't study the right things. Maybe I could have did something more. Yeah, I was just beating myself up a lot.
And from everything that you just told me, you took the way that you take a collegiate level exam, tried to apply to this professional level exam, and it didn't really work out so well.
Correct. So for collegiate, I didn't really have to study that much at all. I could just, scan over things, take a test, pass. This time I went through a whole prep course, and I studied maybe just once every other day. Did maybe about 2 to 3 hours the every other day. And I think I studied the day before, maybe almost all day. I took a 170 question quiz the day before, and then I got up that morning. I think I went for a jog and studied some more before I went to take the test.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel like you even overstudied for this exam?
Yes.
And would you say that you've been overstudying leading up to this attempt?
I have, because I've been studying maybe out of a week. I probably study 6 days out of the week. I'll probably just take one day off.
In knowing yourself, do you think that you're getting all 6 days worth of studying in? Are you benefiting from that much?
I feel like I am, but then again, I may not. And the reason why I say that is because now I can rehearse a lot of material, and that's what I do every day, or let me say the next day I kind of rehearse, or I rehearse what I learned the previous day. And if I've learned that, then I move on to the next thing.
Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is the biggest thing that dictates whether you pass or fail the exam?
Oh, it's me.
Why do you think that you have that much power?
Because I'm the one in there taking the test.
What if I told you the only thing that dictates whether you pass or fail the exam is the questions that you see that day, and it has nothing to do with you?
That would make sense.
And what I mean by that, because a lot of times I say that people are like, Phil, you don't know anything. Like, I'm pushing myself to the limits. I'm the one that's clicking the buttons. I'm the one that's executing. However, when you have that mentality that everything is on my shoulders and I have to have everything and all the answers in order to pass this thing, it puts too much pressure. And when you are too rigid, your ability to be able to adapt to the information that's in front of you goes down. And being able to reflect and say, I can have a process, but there may be questions I do not know. There may be things that my process doesn't work with, and I do not have that much control in the exam, but I can control how I conduct myself in there. But I could know everything. I could have done everything right and still walk in and fail.
Yeah, I believe
So in the
that.
next 16 days, I think what you have to do is kind of sit yourself down and say, is what I've been doing actually helping me, or have I convinced myself to do more in order to fill in voids that may not be there because I'm afraid of walking in and failing? But the only thing that could dictate if I pass or fail is something outside of my control. But I'm not even really controlling on putting focus on the things that I can control. I'm focusing on the things that I feel I can control.
Yes.
So what changes do you think that you need to make it look more like what could be helpful for you?
Um, I guess the only changes that I could make is, I don't know. I mean, I kind of just feel guilty if I don't study, because it's like, I don't know. I just feel guilty if I don't study. So I really don't feel like it's really too many changes I can make.
What do you think makes you feel so guilty for not studying?
Mm, just having, I don't like to fail. That's the only thing.
Okay. So let's say you walk into the exam and it starts going and you're feeling like you're gonna fail it. What do you think you could do to redirect yourself to think that you can still pass?
I really can't do nothing, because at the end of the day, I know it'll be a different exam.
Okay. So I think that you have everything that you need. You just need to remind yourself that it's not about memorizing anymore. It's about being able to apply it to a diverse set of questions and or client situations.
That makes sense. Yeah, but I guess it's just figuring out how.
So my biggest recommendation would be going to YouTube after this session and saying, let me type in some of these questions because those are free. You just sit down, click the video, pause the video before I break it down. You break it down yourself, hit play, see how I break it down, see how close or far away you are from the process that I recommend, and how close or far away you are from the answer. And if your process aligns with getting the correct answer, even though it doesn't mimic what I do, you know you're in a better position than if you walk in with an entire backpack. This is a virtual backpack, by the way, of all the possible things that you can see on the exam. That is going to be more helpful than if you're like, I can explain all of Freudian theory, all of Erickson's, all of the meds, all the DSM. I can recite all of these things. And then you see none of it on the exam and then have a panic moment.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely agree with that.
So that's where I'm a huge proponent of you don't need additional things. Some people need less because less is often more, because the more that you have on top of you, the more that you can get drowned in, and being able to scale it back and say, I don't need to know everything. I just have to be able to recognize and apply it.
Yes. Well, I mean, even tonight when you did the question, I thought it was A, and only reason why I thought it was A is because there's already an open case. So why not reach out to the social worker?
And that's where knowing there's one detail that can change everything. In questions, detail can change everything. So to flex that out a little bit further, so the question that I reviewed, we would go to the caseworker if he's like, I've been abusing my brother ever since we were together, because we have enough information.
Yeah,
Does that
that
make
makes
sense?
sense.
So that's where a lot of times people are like, this program tells me this, or this other program tells me this, or I feel that this is a theme among all questions. Do not take the shortcut to being able to get to where you want to go. It's being able to sit yourself down, understand what you need, what's going on in the situation, what a particularly answer is going to apply back to the question in order to get you to a better position rather than being able to template things into place.
Okay.
Does that make
makes
sense? Walk in and kill this
Yes.
thing. You can do this. You just got to sit yourself down and say it's okay to fail. It doesn't dictate who I am as a person. It just is an experience. And in order to have experience, I must have experienced something.
Yes, I agree.
And if you need anything in the process, just let me know.
Will do. Thank you.
It is my pleasure. I test in 18 days. I'm anxious, to be expected. This is my second and final attempt. I'm passing this exam. I notice I'm second guessing and doubting myself when doing practice questions. How can I assess that my study practices are effective?
Hi, Phil.
How's it going? How's it going?
It's going good. I think you sort of answered somewhat with the previous person's question. I think I'm overdoing it because I've taken the test already and I failed. I failed by 10 and I studied, but I think I had the wrong approach the first time because I was really focused on content. So I failed by 10. I went into the exam. I was calm. I thought I was confident. I dressed up, I looked my best that day. I was just feeling good about, I'm going to pass this exam. And then, the little fail went across the screen and I was just like, what? But then when I got the results and that I only failed by 10, I felt good because of the content that was on the exam was nothing really that I studied. So that kind of gave me a boost, but then it was a shot to my confidence because I failed. So this time, and one of my coworkers, introduced me to you. So this time I had a study buddy, and we've probably been watching many of your videos since July. We both did the all day course last week, which was amazing. I mean, all of your videos are amazing. Like, your energy is so infectious that no one can watch your videos and not like gain from that. Like, if they don't gain anything from that, something is seriously wrong with them. Because you're so positive, you're so motivating, you're easy on the ears, the documents that, I mean, it's so relatable and so easy to pick up. So now I just feel like I'm super anxious, and some of it I'm just, normalizing it because it's an exam and, we put a lot of weight on it. But now I just feel like I'm doing too much and I need to scale back and not psych myself out to reschedule, because I can see myself easily doing that. My study buddy actually took her exam on Monday and she passed. So then naturally that added some extra pressure, because it's like, well, I take mine in 2 weeks. So, I got to knock it out the park too. And I'm confident, but then there's always that, that doubt that I think we put more pressure on ourselves than we should. I feel like I'm all over the place.
But let me ask you this. If your friend or study buddy hadn't have passed, do you think your mind would have made the shift of questioning yourself?
Not as much. I think just naturally, just second guessing, because I am overly critical of myself, and I'm the type of person that it's easy for me to, encourage others, boost, everybody else up, and, give advice and, guide people to get to the next best place. But it's hard to do that for myself.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think it's so difficult for you to look at yourself and say, I'm going to invest in myself today?
Um, Phil, that's a whole other therapy session. But in short, I am the Phil that, the busy, filling up my time with all kinds of things and just never giving myself time to do what I need to do for myself. So now in studying, I'm implementing that self-care like I need to. Working from home makes that a little bit easier. But I just got a lot of life things going on. So it's just, I'm just a do, and never taking that breather or, giving myself the validation that I need to give myself.
And I think the next less than 3 weeks away has to be full of that. And what I mean by that is do not run from what you know to be true. Because I normally hear this about 7 days out. Normally a week out from people's exam, I hear this exact conversation, but the difference is that your friend passed, so that tripped in your mind additional pressure. However, as a challenge, you have to put on blinders and say, yes, my friend passed it, but I'm not taking the same exam as them. So if I do not get the same result, I still am able to sit at the table with them because we did not go through the same things and did not experience the same things to get to this exact point.
Correct.
They're not measurable.
Correct. And on the surface, it's like, I know that, but internally the anxiety, I'm just trying to keep the anxiety at bay, because then that's taking my mind to the place where I shouldn't go. So it's, I'm just like, just focus, be positive, put in your work, do what you need to do. And I know the test doesn't define me, but it's just one of the, you just want to be done with it. I just want to be done with it and move on.
The only way to be done with it is to give it the respect and give yourself the respect and know that you can walk in there and get it done. And what I mean by that is you do not have to build up at this moment. You have to build down. You have to build down and build a base that you feel you can stand on, regardless of whether you pass or fail. And what I mean by that is, like, Phil, you're like, on the surface, I look comfortable. I feel confident. I got everything rolling on, but under the surface, aka building down in the base, it's kind of shaky. And if I get put into one situation and get checked, the whole structure falls down.
This is true.
And that's where you got to build a base and build down and say, I am going to build myself up by giving myself a strong base and saying, it does not matter what I do, that it's who I am while doing it that is going to define who I am. It's not what I do that makes me who I am. It's what I'm doing and who I am while doing that. So you walking into the exam after failing it one time shows a lot about the grit that you have, but you have to believe that that first time is not the same person that you are right now, based on the fact that you've given yourself additional strategies, techniques, and all these different things, and convincing yourself that first one is no longer who I am. And I have to believe in myself and have so much faith in myself as a human and my skills and my competencies and my techniques of being able to walk into the exam, blocking everyone else out and knowing that I am worth everything that I believe that I'm worth of. And if anyone else tells me different, they're getting cut off today.
That's a word, Phil. That is a word. Took me to church. I appreciate that.
And that's what I mean is way too many times. I don't know what it is about social workers. We're beautiful people with beautiful souls, and we're willing to give everything away and cash everybody out. We're making sure everyone's okay. We're making sure we give as much as we possibly can. But when it comes to giving ourselves anything, whether that's self-care, whether that's something financially, whether that's a break, whether that's spiritually, all these different things. It's like we're in a deficit and like, no, I'm okay. I'm not worth that. But if somebody else asked you for the same thing that you were rejecting yourself of, you're like, yep, here you go. And it's like, you got to build down, because at the end of the day, you are the only thing that you have. And if you do not take care of yourself, you're not able to take care of the other people around you that need it. But not every person needs your energy, because energy costs. Stop giving it away and start giving it back to yourself. Because if you do not charge yourself up and walk into the exam 100% you are not going to give yourself 100%, and you're going to find a reason to not answer the questions based on the fact that you're like, well, I'm not giving everything that I could have walking into this. And this is not consciously you being like, yep, I'm taking the foot off the pedal, but subconsciously, it's almost like you're afraid to give 100% of you. So that way you have a reservation being like, yeah, this external thing didn't happen. So of course I wasn't going to walk in and pass. You got to settle that in the next little bit of time and build down and say, regardless of what happens in these next, I'm just going to say 3 weeks because it's easier for me to say, these next 3 weeks, I am not giving anything away anymore. I'm giving to myself in order to give myself and make up for the things I haven't been giving myself, because I need to walk in there. I need to get the job done, and I need to execute, because I'm done investing in everyone else, because I need to be invested in, and no one else up to this point has done it, but I'm worth it.
Amen to that. You are exactly right. And I just have to focus. Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure to be able to help. And if you need anything in the process, just let me know. But do not let the things that you do not know, or the opportunities that you do not feel that you can obtain, stop you from walking in and giving it everything that you have, because we are more capable of things than we think we are. And we tend to cut ourselves short because we're afraid to fail and get rejected in some way.
This is true. This is true. You are amazing, Phil. I appreciate you more than words can say.
And it's my pleasure to be able to help. Just keep doing the things that you know you need to do. Walk into the exam, and everything is going to work out. It will.
I'll be sharing my past story very soon.
And it'd be my pleasure to have you come on and give that transition from I wasn't feeling comfortable and competent to I walked in and slayed. I slayed the dragon, and I now have a trophy that says no one can ever rob me of my worth again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is a good perspective that I can put into my mindset. So I appreciate it.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you, Phil. I
took my exam on December 3rd. I got the most points I've ever gotten on it, but still failed. I wouldn't mind talking about it with the group. Like, give me any feedback.
Yeah, I had my test on December 3rd. I got the most points I ever got. So I got in the high 90s. Unfortunately, I needed to get 100 to pass. It was an easier test. The test was really weird that there was like almost no application questions. It was just a weird questions in general. They were just nothing I've ever seen before. They were just different than like the other times I took before. So I don't know. But all your things that you've told me did help a lot though. So breaking down the questions, and the thing I did different on this one is I took the full 4 hours and I read the questions multiple times. So that helped a lot. I don't know if I have nothing really to say besides that. I don't know if anybody could give me advice on or.
So from the sounds of it, you prepared for application-based questions. The exam threw a curveball at you, and then it caused you to almost second-guess yourself or overthink so much so that it caused you to be confused during the exam.
Slightly, yep. Yeah, you could say that.
So it was kind of a win, but then you're looking like, well, now how do I study?
Yeah.
So thinking about it now of this is how I prepared walking into this attempt. This is the stuff that I saw on this exam. Which strategies or techniques do you think that you need to do to build yourself up to walk in the next time to know that you have potentially all the bases covered?
More tutoring sessions with Phil.
Okay. So when you're not with me, because it'd be impossible to be with me 100% of the time, what additional strategies and techniques do you think would need to be helpful walking in?
I think I bought a couple of your classes, so I think I watched those basically 24/7 for 2 or 3 months. So I think I know the information pretty well. I think it was just a bad test, like this weird questions, and I think next time I think I'll do better. I'll pass, but I don't know. I think it was just a weird one where I just didn't know any of the questions that because I took it before, and it was, if I would have had to fill those things, I think I would have done a better job.
So from the sounds of it, you almost have to, I'm not huge on pop culture, like movies or something, but you almost need to have like that Men in Black, like pen, and get it out of your memory and reset yourself and say, this exam that I saw is not what I'm going to see in the future. And I'm going to do better because my vision is different now. And this is kind of a weird situation that I got more recall questions than application.
Yeah, that's true. I think I need to keep on doing what I'm doing. Hopefully I'll pass.
And I think that's the hardest part is you did everything that you could. You mastered the strategies and techniques for application questions, and you just had that rare instance of it's like a glitch in the system, if you will, that was like more recall, and it was not what you expected, but convincing yourself that it had nothing to do with you. It was the set of questions. And if you would have gotten a different exam that day, you likely would not be having this conversation and you'd be on the other side of passing.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the most difficult part is we prepare in all these different ways because this exam is a monster. And I know it's weird for me to be like, yeah, this exam's a monster, but yeah, I took it too. I was scared crapless, man. I was like, oh my gosh. Because it's very, very difficult to study for it because we study in the way that we think could be helpful. And that's why I focus more on the questions because that's what the exam is made up of. And when you walk in, and this is a statistic I normally don't bring up because it's not the most positive one, but whether you study or do not study, the percentage of you passing or failing is 50%. Whether you study or do not study, the percentage of you passing or failing is 50%. Why? Because there's two options. You either pass or you fail. So that's where you got to remind yourself is statistically, this is impossible to happen again based on the fact that it wasn't what I thought, but I got to almost like Men in Black pen myself out of it and say, yo, I'm just going to forgive myself for this attempt. I'm going to continue doing what I thought. And it's most times people are like, Phil, isn't that the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. The only flaw with their comment and thought process is you will never see the exact same 170 question exam that you did before. So you can do the same thing over and over and over and get a different result based on the fact that you're going to get a different set of questions and it's not the same situation. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And I know it's easier said than done, but just pushing yourself and reminding yourself that it wasn't a short end on my side. It's just simply the questions gave me a good game and I had to shake their hand and say, good job. I'm coming back and I'm going to take your face off next time.
Sounds awesome. Keep doing what you're doing, Phil.
It's my pleasure to be able to help. If you need anything, just let me know. Phil, ready to share my experience about passing.
Is that me, Phil?
Yes, it is. How's it going?
It's going. How are you?
I'm doing well. So tell them your experience, who you are, what exam you took, and what it was like.
My name is Katie. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, and I took the LSW. And I took me 3 times to pass, I'm not gonna lie. And Phil's 5-step process is what got me through it. What I did was I utilized that whiteboard. Every question that had a scenario, who I was, where I was at, where's the client at, I wrote everything down, and then I found the answer that went with the question.
And walk them through what this test meant for you.
Everything. My career. I was on the verge of losing my job if I didn't pass. It meant benefits for my children. It meant a lot of things to me. So that's why passing it, making it such more sweeter.
And what was it like to not pass in the past, find a new strategy and say, crap, is this going to work for me now? And am I going to execute it enough to pass? So walk them through that conversation we had just before your exam.
You told me pretty much to go and kick it in the chest, and going in there, it was terrifying. I'm not going to lie. I kept on saying just the first 5 questions, don't go back on it. If you think you're wrong, don't go back. She'll blow out the first 5 questions. You just made me feel so positive about things that I could do it. Just to get over my anxiety, because I was the one that was holding myself back. And just, I kept on hearing your voice in my head every time. Who are you? Where you're at? Meet the client where they're at. I just kept on hearing, don't think about that one question because you're going to blow the next 5. Just keep it pushing. Little tricks that you taught throughout your classes is I just kept on hearing your voice in my head the whole time.
So if you saw somebody that was anxious or like, man, I'm not really sure if I can do this. I failed multiple times. I need to pass this to make sure that my family is okay. I'm not really sure if I can do this. I'm going to fail. I failed in the past. What would you say to them?
I thought the same thing you did. Stay positive. You will get this. It takes time. It takes energy. It takes work. I studied for this exam for over a year. I took it 3 times. And as we all know, it's very expensive to take this test. So just stay positive. I mean, I am Miss Anxiety Pants, so I understand. So just breathe. And as soon as if you're sitting there, you're going to feel anxious. Just tell your head to shut the F up and you'll be all right.
And if somebody was like, yo, I hear you, but my anxiety is really bad, what are some things that you did besides telling yourself, like, just keep going, and telling your head to shut the F up? Like, what are some practical things that people can grab onto and utilize it on their own?
Go to the bathroom, take a walk. Not too long to get time, but go to the bathroom, go get some water. Just take a sit back for a minute, look around. You have 4 hours. Doesn't seem like a lot of time, but it is. You have time to get up and stretch your legs for a few minutes. Take a breath. Sometimes you just need to step back.
Anything else that you could find helpful to share that you went through, or things that you would recommend people do leading up to their exam?
Take your question break. Take his question breakdown class. That is, I feel, the best class ever. I recommend that to anybody. I feel like that helped me so much because and plus I'm an auditory learner, so hearing you talk was so helpful to me. So that's why I kept on hearing your voice in your head, like little facts. Like there was a couple questions that you went over. I forget what they were now, but we talked about them in your study groups, and I knew the answer right away because I heard you talking in my head, and it was crazy.
And it's my pleasure to be able to help and be in this process. And your story still to this day just reminds me of why I'm doing this, of, yo, this is actually impacting situations. And to hear our conversation prior to the exam, you being like, Phil, I'm afraid, but I'm more confident than I've ever been to walk into the exam, get it done, and secure benefits and everything for your
Yep.
children. It just blows my mind, you know?
Yep. Thanks to Phil, my kids have health, dental, and vision. Thank you.
And I guess if you need anything in the future, just let me know. But I really, really appreciate you coming back, sharing your experience, and putting like personal things out there, because I feel like way too many times people think, well, that must have been easy for that person to pass the exam. And they don't really hear the hardships and the difficulties it takes to get into passing.
God, no. I mean, I suffer from learning disabilities, and it's hard. Things are hard for me. I've always had to fight and like take things multiple times. But the thing is, please don't give up. I almost did. Don't do it.
Anything else you feel could be helpful for somebody?
Listen to this genius right here. That's all you need. Just listen to him. Take his advice. Take his classes. That 5-step process is fantastic. Do the breakdown questions. I can't rave more about this guy. Thank you, Phil. Thank you.
It is my pleasure to be able to help. And I'm still trying to look around who you're talking about, but no, I'm kidding.
Oh, stop it.
But just keep building yourself up as well. And whenever you feel like you can't do something or that you should not do something, just do it anyway, because you definitely can.
No, I'm going to call you so you can give me a pep talk and I'll be all set.
It'd be my pleasure to be able
Thank
to do
you,
that.
Phil. Good luck, everybody. You guys will do it. Don't give up.
Pleasure.
Don't give up.
Good evening, Phil. So I've been working hard to pass this exam. I've taken it many times and can't seem to get over the hump. Looking for some tips to break down questions, as I feel that I know the material.
Hey, Phil.
How's it going? How's it going?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing as well as I can. So walk me through this. What do you feel is the thing that can get you over the hump? I know you said I need tips on breaking down the questions, but what is your experience of breaking down the questions so far?
So I recently took the test on October 31st, and I needed a 99, and I got a 90. So I've taken it multiple times, obviously, and at first, like the first couple of times, I can relate to a few people that spoke, and it was more like I was over studying, and I felt like I had to know all this material. But then now I've gotten to the point where I feel confident in knowing the material, but now I realize it's me understanding the questions and breaking down the questions. And once I did do that, which I did improve in my score, not because I was closer to passing than I have been previously. So I did see like, okay, I made progress, but it's just disheartening because I always try to, build myself up and have that confidence. And then to fail again, it's just like, it gets harder and harder, like to go back. So I'm not giving up, but I'm just, at a loss on what to do differently. I've tried study groups. I've tried, studying alone. I just don't know what else to do at this point.
I think the biggest step is to give yourself credit for wanting to go back into the ring. And I say that, and a lot of times people are like, well, why wouldn't you go back in? Because it's a stressful and emotionally charged event to give everything that you have it not go well, and then think, what am I doing wrong? And a lot of times when people say, Phil, I'm not really sure what else I can do, you may be doing the right things. We just need to change small things to get yourself in a different environment. And way too many times people will say, there must be something wrong with me, rather than there's something wrong with the approach, the strategies, the techniques, the program, or any of these things that do not have anything to do with me. So I think that's the first step, is identifying specifically what has worked for you, because you didn't say, Phil, I walked in the exam, I got 0 correct. Right. Now, if you'd have told me that, we're having a whole different conversation, because we need to identify a strategy and technique that would work for you. But, and this is an unpublished theory that I have, is people that fail by 10 or less blame themselves. People that fail by 10 or more tend to blame the exam and say we shouldn't be able to do this or we shouldn't have to do this, etc. We're not having that conversation right now. We're in that 10 or less category. And that's where you have to sit yourself down and say, what has worked for me? What hasn't worked for me? And let's get a set of questions in front of myself to walk myself through this process. And then that's the trickiest part, is most times it's difficult for people to look at themselves and say, I'm doing this wrong, I'm doing this wrong, and I'm doing this wrong. It's like the principle of proximity of, I'm too close to myself to know what I'm specifically doing, and that could be negatively impacting myself. So a couple of questions that can guide this a little bit further is, do you second guess yourself? Do you add to the questions? Do you ruminate on the questions? Do you pick an answer, go a couple of questions later, and you're still thinking about that previous question? These are just things to consider, because if you're doing any of those or all of those, and if you're listening to this and you're like, Phil, guilty as charged, slap the gavel and take me away, then we can have a different conversation. So where would you say you're at in that process?
So I'll base it off my most previous time. I would say like the first half of the exam, like my confidence was there. I was going through the process. I felt good. But as I started getting closer to the end and I realized like I was running out of time, I felt a little rush, and that made me start second guessing myself. And then once I finished and I'd seen that I needed 9 extra questions, of course, those thoughts in my head, like, oh, I wonder if I had some more time with those 9, like I rushed through the last half or close to the end. And I'm like, oh, I wonder if because you'll never know. But it's just, that's how it's been for me.
What do you think took you so long on the questions?
Overanalyzing some of them, obviously. I got to the end and I didn't have enough time to finish. So I guess thinking too deep into some questions.
Okay. So my biggest recommendation when it comes down to this is to identify a process that you can utilize on all 170 questions. Don't get that comment misconstrued or overthink this. I do not mean that you can utilize one strategy for every question. It's, what are the processes that I need to utilize in order to break down the question? So if you've seen any of my videos, it is almost the exact same process every single time. It's this. Okay, let's look at the answers, identify what the answers are, compare each answer back to the question to make sure it connects. And as they don't connect, getting ruled out. And it's not like I'm saying, well, if this detail was changed over here, or my agency over here, and my client Monster one time did this client's presenting this way as well, I need to view this as Monster. No. What is happening in the question? How comfortable do I feel with the details in the question? Because a lot of times people will adapt a process based on what a program recommends for you to do. So for example, some programs, I'm going to take a breath, because some programs get me riled up. And what do I mean by that is they try to tell you to take a shortcut to getting to the answer, and then you don't feel comfortable taking that shortcut because it doesn't work for you. And that is where you have to conceptualize and say, there's no shortcut to success, and this is not one time that I can do it. So not every time I see CPS in the answer choices, am I going to jump up like a cat got squirted with water and say, yep, I know the answer, because that's going to cause you to overthink, or do not try to answer the question prior to seeing the answers. And that's where you got to retrain yourself. And a lot of these programs, and I'm not going to say any of them because they help people, but they also hurt some people. And those people they hurt typically come and rep with me, and we retrain it in order for them to actually understand what's in the question, to be able to feel more comfortable and confident, rather than being like, yep, don't know the answer to the question, so no, I must not deserve to sit here. It's the answers on the page. It's not a fill in the blank answer, and identifying a strategy. So identifying that pattern for yourself could mean that you simply try questions and try different things. And some things that I've And this is, of course, going to be darn near impossible for me to give you everything that you could possibly need because I don't specifically know your process and stuff. But a couple of examples to give you ideas. If you're an auditory person, meaning you learn by hearing, you best be talking the question out loud to yourself. And you may be like, well, why? Because that's how you learn. Use your superpower. If you're listening to things and it makes sense to you, reading the question out loud is going to allow for you to understand the details in the question better than if you're reading it like a silent film, because then you're robbing a part of your process away. Or if you're somebody that is not an auditory person and you're speaking it out loud to yourself, you're spinning your wheels. That's energy you can utilize in a different way. Or if you're somebody that's tactile, meaning you have to feel it or take notes, and you're not writing something down, you're robbing yourself as well. So identifying specifically what you need to do. And a lot of times people are like, Bill, you can't highlight during the exam, dude. You're totally disconnected. You have no freaking clue. I just do that because that's what makes sense to me and the access to me. But if you're somebody that's like, I wish I could highlight during the exam, and you're not writing it down, you're robbing yourself of the ability to be able to do that. And the way you practice is how you're going to perform. And what I mean by that is a lot of times people will walk into the exam and say, all right, I've been practicing doing all these strategies and all these techniques, and then they throw it out the window because they feel that they do not work. And if they didn't work or you didn't feel comfortable doing them, please don't practice them. And that means if Phil does not work for you and my style and my energy and all these things don't work for you, please find somebody that does. And that's weird for some people because they're like, well, I normally talk to people and they say they are going to help people pass the exam and they're trying to sell them something or take money from them. And that's not my gig. My gig is to make you feel as comfortable, confident, and ability and raise your competency to walk into the exam and kill it. So making sure what you do emulates what actually is meant for you to do. There's no one strategy I can give you right now that's like, all right, well, the acronym, because the acronym may not make sense to you. And that's not something I push on to people because it doesn't work for everybody. That's why we have different ways of learning and different ways of being able to articulate things. So identifying your tick in order to be able to tick this off of the list of what you need to do in your life. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, and sorry that I just talked that whole bunch, but I noticed that you're taking notes, so I was like, she just wants me to tell her. So, like I said, I was like, okay, but that's the thing is you got to know specifically what you need. And if you're definitely a tactile person, so you need to be writing down the details. So if you're finding yourself, man, there's so much details in the question, writing down the key details. And that does not mean you write down the whole question. So for example, let me just come up with a random question that doesn't exist. It might exist somewhere, but so let's say you have a 30-year-old male. He's breaking into houses to make ends meet because COVID's difficult. He got arrested. He's court ordered. He doesn't really want to engage with you, but his son is struggling in school. So out of those key details, 30-year-old male, court ordered, robbery, son struggling. What should you do first, next, best, most? So those are the details you need to pick out. You don't need to be like, damn, all right, so he's court ordered. He's going to be resistant. He doesn't want to talk to me. It's okay. Let's see what the answers could say about this guy. Ask him about his son to establish rapport. Ask him about his court case. Provide him information about attendance, etc. So you're going to be able to say, okay, well, giving him information about attendance isn't a problem because it's our first time meeting the guy. We don't need to ask him about the court case because we know what happened during the court case. He was stealing to get food for COVID. Okay. And let's say D is like, assess his anger or something. Let's throw that in there. So obviously the answer is going to be A, establish rapport by asking him about his son, because that's going to tell him that you actually give a crap about him. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But all that was done was writing it down, and you did not add any other details. You didn't say, well, most court order people aren't going to engage. He's resistant, etc. You stayed within the question. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah. And if you need anything else, just let me know.